Are you feeling lonely these days? Do you feel like you don't have many friends? Well, if so, don't worry since you're not alone. Apparently, this isn't all that new as loneliness is increasing across the world, with more people feeling as if they don't have as many friends or companions around them. In this video, I'll explore the rising epidemic of loneliness across the world and why you, along with many others, don't need to feel too guilty of feeling alone. But before I do so, make sure to like this video to help spread this message across more people, and subscribe to this channel if you want me to continue feeding you nuggets of gold to boost brain and behavior. So, if you're feeling like the number of friends around you aren't that many, don't worry, you're not alone. In fact, many studies have come out in the past several years indicating that the number of close friendships has actually declined over the past decades. Just looking at the US, for example, on a set of 2021 dataset, almost half of Americans, about 49%, reported having 3 or fewer closer friends. That is a huge drastic increase compared to just 3 decades before, where in 1990, only about a quarter, 27%, reported the same. Things have likely gotten worse since the pandemic, with one study finding a 16% decrease in overall network size, roughly more than 200 people, from 2019 to 2020. While the pandemic definitely pushed this feeling further as millions dealt with bouts of depression, loneliness, and isolation, there are plenty of other reasons for why our friendships have been declining as a whole. For one of them is increased mobility. The very nature of our world is changing as plane tickets have become cheaper than several decades back, and the fact that we have more opportunities to work from different parts of the country or world at large adds to this. Compared to the previous generation, we are able to move around for work and other opportunities much more frequently than before. As such, this can make it a bit tricky to maintain close friendships as being in a completely different physical location away from those around us inevitably loosens those ties. As the saying goes, out of sight, out of mind. Looking at the US again, since we have the largest data set, up till 2018, the percentage of Americans moving to another state or address sat around 1.5%. However, in the past few years, particularly from 2019 to 2021, this number of permanent address changes across state rose up to 3.3% yearly, or in other words, 10.2 million people. And this isn't necessarily the fault of a person, but just the very nature of life or work in general can influence our desire to move. Some reasons for why people are moving around even more so than before is to seek more opportunities. Whether it's wanting to get up out of where you grew up or simply seeking for new life elsewhere, people move to find new opportunities. Whether that's in a new state or a new country entirely, we all want to feel like we're advancing forward. And if the place we're at doesn't seem to be giving us that, whether due to economic conditions or something else, we make the move. According to a survey done by Gallup, 15% of the world's adults, or at least 750 million people, stated that they would move to another country if they had the opportunity. So whether people do or not, it's evident that the desire to do so exists. It's also easier to travel. While in recent years, especially since the Ukraine war, ticket prices have gone up. But compared to 30 years ago, flying has become much cheaper. Decades back, traveling was more of a thing for those with money, with flights being much more expensive as a whole. Additionally, to travel somewhere, you would have to go to a travel agency and book your ticket that way, while these days you can just go online and within a few clicks purchase a ticket. So this increased ease of travel is another reason why people are moving around more. And then there's the societal trends and norms that are happening. On top of the increased mobility of people, societal trends and norms are also what have impacted the decline of friendships at large. In the past, people were more likely to stay in the same job, same city, or even same town for their entire lives. As such, it was easier to make and maintain friendships. Today, this is not so much the case. Even when we look at the modern workforce, Gen Z and millennials, they fundamentally seek different things compared to people 30 years ago. With the interconnectedness of the internet, Gen Z and millennials see themselves as global citizens with a fondness to travel and experience more of the world rather than just staying in one place. This is so much so that flexibility is one of the top priorities when it comes to working. Unlike before, job hopping isn't so much of a foreign thing as well. According to Zippia, on average, a modern millennial will stay at their job for 2.75 years. As such, social norms have changed, as Gen Z and millennials want to feel like they are part of something bigger, have a desire to explore more careers and industries, and simply just live. Even when looking at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median amount of time a worker stays with a job was about 4.1 years for private sector workers in 2022, while in 2000 this number was 7.6 years. And then there's also the rise of remote work. Since the pandemic, remote work has shot up in demand. While there are some opposing arguments against the implementation of remote work, the fact of the matter is that people still desire some form of hybrid work at least. In the US alone, where they have the highest number of remote workers, 12.7% of full-time employees worked from home, while 28.2% worked in a hybrid model. This number is expected to increase by 2025. And it's not just a matter of yes or no, at least 98% of workers express the desire to work remotely. As this becomes more normal, so is staying at home more, and as a result, less going out to meet people. And then there's the joy of missing out, which we've covered in a different video. Ever since the pandemic, people were left to dedicate their time to personal self-discoveries, whether it's a new hobby or side hustle. While this was definitely a beautiful thing to see for a lot of people, the reverse side effect to that is that people have become more content with not having to go out and meet others to feel fulfilled. People are less susceptible to FOMO and are in fact embracing the joy of missing out. And as it becomes more popular, they become more comfortable with not having to go out and socialize. Also, 30 years ago, it was quite common to have a family, and within that family, you'd build a community, and that's most likely where you'd feel a sense of closeness or friends. That has all changed. In fact, the percentage of Americans living alone has increased decade to decade, whereas in 1960, single-person households accounted for only 13% of all households. But in 2022, that number more than doubled. This means less families, less communities, and thus less friends. And of course, we all have some increased anxiety as well. In the first year of the pandemic, anxiety and depression was prevalent everywhere, with a huge increase of 25% globally. While things have seemingly returned to normal, the past 2 to 3 years of living in such anxiety has stuck, and there are a lot of people struggling with post-pandemic social anxiety. Another case for why we're feeling more lonely is the greater use of social media. Almost all teens and adults under the age of 65 are reported to be using the internet, and the amount of time spent on social media platforms has only been growing. 1 in 3 US adults 18 and over reported that they were almost constantly online. And looking at the US data, they found that those who reported using social media for more than 2 hours a day had double the chances of feeling as if they were socially isolated. This compared to those who only use social media for less than 30 minutes per day. In a strange way, by feeling like we're more connected digitally, we actually do less to actually get connected to real life. So while it's natural to partially blame the pandemic for today's loneliness epidemic, this increase in loneliness and decline in friendships has been happening long before COVID. According to a survey, nearly half, or 47% of Americans report having lost touch with at least a few friends over the past 12 months. But as said before, this isn't solely due to the pandemic. The rate of loneliness among young adults has increased year on year from 1976 to 2019. So this is definitely an issue that has been plaguing us for decades. Moreover, supposedly low-income adults are more likely to be lonely, as 63% of adults who earn less than $50,000 per year are considered lonely. And in the US alone, 50% of Americans had an annual household income less than $75,000, so that is quite a large amount of people at risk of feeling lonely. So why is this also important? This isn't meant to put anyone down, but just to demonstrate the reality of the situation at large. While a lot of the data was looking at Americans, the feeling of loneliness does run rampant globally as well. And this is definitely a problem, as we all need social connections. There have been an endless amount of studies demonstrating why we need friends and social connection in general. A meta-analysis of 70 independent studies found that feeling socially isolated and lonely reduced life longevity, similar to that of having severe obesity or smoking 15 cigarettes a day. By feeling lonely, we also have a harder time overcoming obstacles in life. In one study, for example, they found that people assessed hills as being more steep when they were alone compared to when with a friend. So lacking friends may feel like it's harder to deal with something difficult compared to that of having a companion by our side. And when we're lonely, our brain pays more attention to negative things. The sense of social isolation has shown to activate the same brain regions involved in physical pain. Several studies have shown that adults across the globe rate their social relationships, particularly with family and close friends, as one of, if not the most important source of meaning and motivation in their lives. This is probably because we have a sense of purpose that contributes to a higher perceived emotional support, which can lead to a longer life through behaviors that are good for our health. So if this video has shown you anything, it's that you need to start getting out of your comfort zone and building those social connections. For one, you can try to attend community events and gatherings. Look online in local Facebook groups, meetup.com, or other similar platforms, and try to participate in local community events, workshops, and seminars. These events can provide an opportunity to meet new people who share similar passions and interests. You can also try to join clubs, groups, or classes. We all have hobbies, sports, or personal interests, so use that as a starting ground to search for relevant clubs, groups, or classes to meet people with similar passions. The fact that there is some relatability can serve as an easy icebreaker. If it's a class, you can also learn something while potentially meeting people, so it's a double win. You can also try to volunteer for a cause. See if there's a cause that you are interested in and volunteer in it. This enables you to connect with people who share your values, and in that process can lead to strong friendships built on these shared values and a common goal. You can also attend networking events. Participate in professional networking events related to your field of work or industry. Not only will this help you connect with like-minded professionals, but it can give you the opportunity to exchange ideas as well. And if not, you can initiate social gatherings. If there is nothing you can find around you, perhaps make the initiative and create a group yourself. Try to organize social gatherings nearby, whether it's a small get-together or a group outing. And of course, while all of this is important, you need to be approachable. When you do go out to these events, make sure to stay open-minded and be approachable. No one wants to socialize with a rigid, closed person. Try your best to be friendly and be willing to listen to others, remaining positive. You need to try to be smart with social media as well. Although too much social media usage is bad, using it in small bites can actually be quite useful. Engage in online communities that align with your interests. This might help those who are more socially anxious. And then also make an effort to communicate. Even if you meet new people, it won't mean nothing if you simply sit back and expect them to reach out to you. Relationships take time and effort to build, and so put in that work to communicate. In the end, while these tips may seem general and somewhat obvious, this is really what it takes to socialize and build friendships. The truth of the matter is, when you're an adult, friendships don't just form out of nowhere, similar to when you were a child in school. You need to foster relationships, friendships, and nurture them to become something real. And as such, everything that is worth having in life requires some effort. So go out there, make some friends, be social, be open-minded, and try to expand your circle just a little bit more. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave it a like, perhaps even write a comment on what you're doing to feel less lonely so that others that are watching this video as well can feel the same. And subscribe to this channel for more videos like this as I continue to help you mind the golden mind.